reports of an unknown illness in dogs have been seen across the U.S. In some cases, this illness has even taken the lives of some canines.
Yeah, Parker Brown looked into how South Dakotans are responding to this and what they should be doing. It is our 9 o'clock top story. Hello there, Parker.
Hey, Brian and Andrea. This mystery condition is a respiratory illness that can begin with a simple cough. It's believed to be highly contagious, and South Dakota veterinarians and dog rescue organizations are doing what they can to make sure that they keep dogs safe and healthy.
Symptoms are initially similar to kennel cough, but they find it doesn't respond to kennel cough antibiotics. It's still a very early stage in the understanding of this mystery illness. Dr. Eder of Best Care Pet Hospitals says that they had their first dog not responsive to treatment within the last 10 days.
Our big concern now is that we're really at the front line here, and we're just trying to do the best that we can in terms of utilizing therapies that are going to treat the treatables and minimizing exposure.
Eder says that some cases develop into a severe pneumonia and some reportedly died from it within 2 days. B-Squad Dog Rescue is making some changes to mitigate risk, like putting all meet and greets on hold and advising foster families to keep their fosters from public places. The nature of their work gives them an advantage in slowing the spread.
And so as a foster-based rescue, all of the dogs that we have are in people's homes. So they're all kind of separated. So just because you have one dog that might get sick, it doesn't automatically expose everybody else, like in a shelter setting.
Vets recommend keeping dogs away from other dogs when possible, drawing comparisons to what humans did with the coronavirus.
In 2020, we kind of learned the playbook on that as it applies to people. And really, it's not that much different for our canine compatriots here, where if you have the ability to restrict your dog's access to other dogs or unknown dogs, I would recommend it.
This illness may present a challenge to families who planned on traveling with their pets over Thanksgiving.
If you're traveling close and you're going over to grandma's and there's going to be other dogs there, you don't know like if they've touched other dogs' noses on a walk or anything like that. It'd be best and safer right now just to leave them at home if you're able to.
Dr. Eder clarified that he's not saying that you shouldn't take your dog to a boarding facility, doggy daycare, or pet sitter. He recommends that pet owners ask those places what their policy is for coughing dogs and how they will work to keep your dog healthy. From there, you can make the best decision for your furry friend. Brian and Andrea.
Something to think about. Parker Brown, thank you.